Hello, everyone. Tony Costa here from Toronto Apologetics. So glad that you can join us for this video session. Today, I want to talk about the sad state of affairs that we have in Canada, where we have situations where the police are afraid or hesitant to lay charges against certain groups that, or special interest groups that break the law. Not only break the law, but break the law openly, break the law with temerity, and break the law on video, an actual camera. And so I'm referring to an incident that occurred in Toronto at the famous Eaton Centre in downtown Toronto, where there was a number of pro-Palestinian protesters who went into the mall, the Eaton Centre, which is a mall, a large shopping center and mall in Toronto. This is something that they have done in other locations as well, including Yorkdale Mall, also in Toronto. And in this particular situation, a number of these protesters, one in particular, threatened a Toronto police officer in insinuating that he was going to put the officer 6 feet under. And of course, that type of language, that idiom that we hear in English when we talk about being 6 feet under, this is referring to burial, death. And so in this particular video, we have a protester. And I'm not going to comment on whether or not, from what I perceive, it sounds like he's an Islamist who is protesting what has been going on in Israel. And of course, nothing is said about Hamas, nothing is said about the charter of Hamas that calls for the complete annihilation of the Jewish people. And therefore, the whole two-state solution has been attempted before, but of course, it's an abject failure, and it will always be an abject failure because that's not what Hamas wants. They made it very clear in their charter that they want nothing short of the annihilation and obliteration of the Jewish people. Now, that's a topic, of course, for another video, and I think I will probably in the days ahead put together a video on that. But what I wanted to do in this particular situation here is I wanted to play a clip, a short clip, where we have the official leader of the opposition, the Honorable Pierre Poilievre. He is the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada. And again, I'm not putting it out there. I'm not saying that I'm not stating what my political affiliation is in all this. So I'm simply referring to the fact that Mr. Pierre Poilievre is the official leader, legally His Majesty's official leader of the opposition. And so in Canada, those of you who are not Canadian, Canada, the way Canada has its parliament is based on the English system, the British system of law. And so as the leader of the official opposition, his job, of course, is to challenge the ruling government, which presently is the Liberal Party of Canada, led by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And so Pierre Poilievre then, as we shall see, makes a commentary on this situation that occurred in Toronto at the Eaton Centre. And so I'm just going to bring that video up, and I may interject or I may stop it, pause it, and make some commentary, but it's a very short clip. And so let's listen to what Pierre Poilievre has to say on the subject.
Welcome to protest for any cause you want, any cause anywhere in the world, but you can't make threats of violence against anyone, let alone a police officer. That's where we draw the line. We live in a free country. You can support or oppose any cause you want. You can express any opinion you want. But where the criminal code draws the line is, A, you can't utter a violent threat to any other human, and B, you can't incite violence against a particular group. I saw the comments. It seemed to me that this individual crossed that line. He threatened to murder, effectively, a police officer, and I don't know what else he could have meant by stating that the officer, the constable, should be put 6 feet under. But for whatever reason, there were no charges laid. And we need to protect Canadians' right to freedom of expression. We cannot allow threats of violence to predominate.
And so here, as you heard from Mr. Polyev, you could see that video for yourself if you just do a search on YouTube, and you could put down protester utters a death threat against officer in Toronto Eaton Centre. And so basically there was a protest going on. And again, this is becoming very common where protesters will go into a public mall where people are just minding their own business and shopping and so forth. They were doing this as well over the Christmas holidays, and thereby interrupting people who are just shopping for Christmas and shopping for their relatives and friends and family. And so in this particular situation, these protesters were in the Eaton Centre, again, disturbing the peace. And one of them, basically, because the police showed up there because of the ruckus that was being caused by the protesters, the police showed up. And again, as Mr. Polyev said, in Canada, we have the right to express ourselves freely. We have the freedom to speak and to freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of religion. All these things are granted under the Charter of Rights of Canada. However, when you use those rights of freedom of expression and freedom of speech and so forth to then utter a death threat against a peace officer, against an officer of the law, and not only utter a death threat, but to make it very clear by saying that I'll put you 6 feet under the Criminal Code of Canada, that is an indictable offense. That is, the Criminal Code of Canada is a federal legislative document that covers the whole country. And so what I would like to do is I would like to quote to you from the charter, the Criminal Code of Canada. I'm just going to bring this up here. And I wanted to share what the Criminal Code of Canada actually says on this particular topic. And so when we look at the Criminal Code of Canada, and this can be found just by typing in Criminal Code of Canada on a Google search, and it will bring you to the justice.gc.ca website, which deals with everything legal in Canada. And here in the Criminal Code of Canada, which is a federal document, once again, under the heading of assaults, section 264.1 of the Criminal Code of Canada states here, uttering threats. So section 264.1, section 1, everyone who commits an offense, who in any manner knowingly utters, conveys, or causes any person to receive a threat, A, to cause death or bodily harm to any person, B, to burn, destroy, or damage real or personal property, or C, to kill, poison, or injure an animal or bird that is the property of any person. And so the Criminal Code of Canada under section 264.1 is crystal clear. It defines what the uttering of a death threat is. And this happens when someone intentionally, knowingly utters and conveys to any person to cause death or bodily harm to any person. And so in the video that we saw, that brief video, this officer of the law was threatened with death and bodily harm. And so what is absolutely stunning and amazing about all of this, folks, is the fact that why wasn't this person charged? This person clearly violated the law, clearly, and it's on video to prove it. It's not a he said, she said. It's clearly on video and it's been recorded. Now, why did the police officer not lay charges? There were witnesses. There were other officers who heard it. And what message does that carry? Did he not decide to lay charges because he would be deemed Islamophobic? Is it Islamophobic to arrest someone who may pertain to a religious group, but if they knowingly break the law and violate the criminal code, doesn't that call for immediate arrest? Notwithstanding who they are, what skin color they are, what religion they hold to, anyone who utters a death threat in Canada commits an indictable offense under the Criminal Code of Canada. It's in the books. It's right there. And every police officer knows that. And so is it because of fear of being called racist, Islamophobic? What if this person was, let's say they were a member of the Ku Klux Klan, the KKK? Would they be arrested? Most likely. If this person was a white nationalist and claimed somehow to, if they carried a cross, would they be charged? Absolutely. I have no doubt about it. And so when we have protesters protesting the Hamas-Israel conflict, and I do agree that that Palestine should be free. It should be free from Hamas, and it should be free from Islamic terrorism. I totally agree with that sentiment, and that's what I call for. They should be free from Hamas and Islamic terrorism, because that is the problem here. But my major concern is that when a police officer witnesses the breaking of the law, and it is his or her job to exercise the duty, to exercise the calling of their office, the oath they made to their office, failure to execute that, what message does that send to others? Well, it sends the message that there's a precedent here that it's okay to threaten police officers as long as you belong to some group that seems to hold another view. This is absolute madness. And so when we get to the point where police officers are afraid to execute the law that they have sworn to uphold, to faithfully uphold and lawfully uphold, what type of a city or what type of a nation are we going to fall into? What type of a nation are we going to collapse into? A lawless nation? And so I think that this is a very dangerous precedent that has been set. And I think that it's fully within the law. It's fully within the jurisdiction of the law to see to it that this person is arrested, even if they may have uttered this threat a couple of days ago, a couple of weeks ago. It doesn't matter. It is an indictable offense, and it is punishable by law. And so when political correctness, which I think is the situation here, when political correctness begins to dominate and begins to take over the conscience of those who are sworn to protect us, to serve and protect, then we have a problem here. We are sacrificing objective truth, and we're sacrificing the law on the altar of political correctness. And this does not end well. And so, as a nation, as a country, we need to maintain order, because where there is no order, chaos will ensue. And Edmund Burke has been reputed to have said that the only thing necessary in order for evil to spread is for good men to do nothing. And so it is my prayer that our country, particularly my country of Canada, that it comes to its senses and realizes that we need to stop playing eeny, meeny, miny, mo with who gets charged and who doesn't get charged. Because if the law is not applied equally to all, then what's the purpose of the law? So from a biblical point of view, the Bible is very clear that the law is given to punish evil. It is given to expose sin and wrongdoing. The law is about punishment. The law is not about rehabilitation. Prison is not a rehabilitation center. That's what hospitals are for. The law is punitive. The law is meant to punish evildoers, as Romans 13 tells us. And so my prayer and my concern, and I totally agree with the leader of the opposition, Mr. Pierre Poilievre, that we cannot continue as a law-abiding country if we do not apply the laws of the land equally to all, because otherwise we're discriminating. And this is a problem that is not going on in Canada by itself. It's a problem that we're seeing in certain states in the United States of America, where criminals are charged and then put out on the streets the next day. And what this shows us is at a bottom level, at a fundamental level, what it shows us is that the moral fiber of North America, is collapsing. And this all traces back to a denial of God as the rightful lawgiver, the one who is the moral base and foundation of all things good and evil, the standard by which we judge good and evil. Not that God is the author of evil, but the moral standard, the base of which we can discern between what is good and what is evil. And so we need to follow the example of 1 Timothy 2:1-3, that we ought to pray for those in authority, for kings and for rulers and those who rule over us, that we may lead a peaceful life. And so my prayer for Canada and for the United States and also Western Europe that is being infected with this type of thinking is that we come back to our roots, the very roots that the cultural Marxists, the very roots that the social justice warriors, so-called, are trying to, that are basically the ones that are trying to erode, get rid of those fundamental truths, fundamental laws of our country. If we don't have law and we become a lawless society, we are going to descend into absolute chaos. We'll become a jungle. And so my prayer then is that for Canada to return to her roots and that the law be applied equally, because that is the job of government, according to Romans 13. Thank you, everyone, for joining and for listening and just taking part in this brief episode. I want to encourage all of you to like the video, to share it, and also to subscribe. If you're not a subscriber to Toronto Apologetics, we encourage you to subscribe, and it's absolutely free. And you'll receive many other videos like this, and you'll be notified when they're posted. So thanks again, everyone. Take care, and God bless you all. Bye for now.